This is Marketing Uncomplicated. Welcome back to Uncomplicated Marketing, where we dive into the minds of marketing experts and industry innovators. Today, I'm super excited to welcome one of my besties from high school, nonetheless, Fadi Khater. Fadi brings a wealth of experience across various facets of the marketing world. Having worked at top ad agencies, management consultancies, and on the client side of marketing, the diverse background has equipped him with a unique perspective on the industry. One thing I'm super interested about is that he began to notice a significant gap in the market where small businesses were often overlooked. So true. And everything that we talk about on this podcast has everything to do with that, and in the support of ensuring that our small business owners get everything that they need. Because traditional marketing doesn't support them for the most part. Fadi set out on a mission to democratize advertising. This led to co-founding his company that he just launched recently called OSSA. I'll have him explain what that stands for, an innovative online self-service advertising platform dedicated to empowering SMEs. Welcome, Fadi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be super exciting. Nice to see you too.
It is indeed.
Yeah, so let's just take a step back, like I always like to do with my guests, and talk through jumping into the world of advertising, going into, big box sort of advertising agencies, working at consulting firms, and then, working on the client side, and everything that you kind of learned from that side to basically take in and pump into the small business world.
Sure. Can I take you a bit back on like a
Yes.
self-discovery journey? So
Please.
I started my career in advertising. I think I went up through the ranks to become director, which took like 7 years. And then I realized that advertising agencies kind of suck. You end up being the scapegoat of everything. It's always the ad agency's fault. You're at the bottom of the food chain. And I wanted something with a little bit more, I don't know, I'd say like reputation or finding myself. So I decided what better than management consulting, where you go meet with C-level people, travel only business class, stay in 5-star hotels, and just be in the top level meetings. So I did that for a year and a bit, and only to realize that you put your heart into something that ends up being a deck in someone's drawer and you don't see your product through. And it was very, very frustrating. Like I really, when you work so hard on something, you want to see it through. And when you don't, it gets a little bit annoying. So I decided what better than client side? If you move to marketing on a client side, then you own your own product and you market your own product. So it would be great. And then only to realize that the CEO usually ends up deciding on everything and the marketing department is not what it's made up to be. So I decided, you know what, let me just start my own business. So I went and I started the social media agency, which I currently have, and we work on very big brands like Visa, McDonald's, TikTok, etc.
And the name of the agency?
The name of the agency is Netizency. It's like a residency on the internet for brands. That's what it was meant to stand for.
It. And you started that when?
I started that around 11 years ago.
Dedicated only to social, or?
It was purely social. So we manage brands' full social media presence, from strategy to social page creation to content creation to answering customer queries to media, so promoting the page, to analytics, to everything around that.
Yeah.
And that went really well. Only from a self-worth or self-growth journey, I realized that I'm back to agency, and it is as frustrating as it is. Only in social media, it's probably a little bit more frustrating because everyone wants to get involved with every single comment that gets posted on the page, and it's much more than the number of campaigns being launched. But regardless of that, I think the moral of the story is that the grass is never greener on the other side. So no matter what you do, you have the different perks. So again, on that same journey, I realized that I have a lot of friends and small businesses who reach out to me who need help with social media. And I realized that I can't afford to work with them, or they can't afford to work with me. And this is because of a bigger truth. Like the business model of agencies require that every output you do to be a brand new, never been done before campaign. And you need, or agencies use people to do that. So if you use people to do something that's never been done before, obviously you're not scalable or you're not very efficient. And what ends up happening is that ad agencies only work with really big clients with really big budgets, leaving a significant portion of the market unserviced.
Yeah.
And
And what is that portion? Because I remember you and I talked about that recently. It's a huge number.
97% of businesses are small businesses,
This is
and they
globally.
represent, yeah, globally, and they
Yeah.
represent 50 to 60% of GDP, depending on the country.
Yeah.
So all the top agencies and the ad agency industry caters for only 40 to 50% of GDP, leaving a massive chunk of the market. Not
Yeah.
only massive, those are the small businesses that need to grow much more than the big agencies. Sorry, more
Totally.
than the big companies. So
Yep.
it's very similar to the 2% Wall Street kind of scenario where only the big brands get real service, whereas all of the small brands don't have a chance to compete, and the gap
Yeah.
keeps on growing bigger and bigger. So this is kind of what stimulated me to start OSSA. OSSA is the word's an acronym for online self-service advertising,
Mm-hmm.
and it's meant to be a platform that democratizes advertising for small businesses. It basically allows any small business owner to easily do digital advertising themselves without having to go through the hoops and hassle of trying to work with agencies and dedicate 90% of their budget to agency fees, assuming they'd work with them, or trying to find six different freelancers, one to write copy, one to develop visuals, one to buy media, one to develop strategy, one to do analytics for them, which also gets messy.
Yep.
So I partnered up with Guy Murphy, who was the former global chief strategy officer for JWT. He was also former deputy chairman for BBH globally. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the leading minds in advertising. And we kind of bonded over the topic of inefficiency of agencies during COVID. And we kept on having one call for an hour every week for 2 years until we finally decided to put our money
Yeah.
where our mouth is. And we started OSSA. So OSSA is dedicated to small businesses. We've done a lot of research. We spoke to a lot of small business owners, and we've had very funny use case scenarios. So we spoke to an accountant who told us the only time she has to do advertising for her business is behind her steering wheel while waiting for her daughter to come out from school.
Oh
And
no.
I mean, as a marketeer, I know that for me to do marketing, it's like a full time job that you spend your entire time doing.
Totally.
Whereas if you think as an entrepreneur, you have 10 minutes a day, then it becomes really, really challenging. And
Yeah.
all of those small businesses have tried every possible solution. They've all tried to go to the Facebook dashboard to create their own ad, or trying to go to Google AdWords and trying to do the search queries.
And they don't make
But
it easy. They
they
do
don't
not
make it
make it
easy
easy.
at all.
Even
And
the self-help videos of how to launch a Facebook ad or how to start your
totally,
Google search and your SEO. I mean, it's complicated on top of complicated.
totally. And I think the main issue that happens there is that they expect you to know exactly what you need to do. So when someone asks you what is your marketing objective and you've never studied marketing or done marketing for a living, you really don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether you should bid based on CPM or CPC, or what to optimize for and how
Yeah.
many different versions to test for, and all of
Yeah.
this jargon comes into play that literally scares everyone.
Yeah.
And
And just for those listening, CPM is cost per thousand and CPC is cost per click. Yeah.
so you don't have that problem with us. I think we've managed to like take out
Yeah.
all of the jargon. But yeah, that goes to prove the point that it's so techy. And I think all of the tools out there have assumed that uh, anyone who's using them totally understands marketing, which is the opposite.
Yeah.
And we even looked at there's a new AI tool to help you with advertising being launched almost every other day somewhere around the
Mm-hmm.
world. But
Mm-hmm.
most of those ad tech tools are done by tech people as opposed to ad people. So they end up asking you 60 questions before developing an ad for you.
Yeah.
Whereas what an entrepreneur or what a small business wants is someone to take those decisions for them. So
Yeah.
we've approached this from an agency perspective. We tried to look at what is the least amount of information we can get from people in order to do their advertising as possible, and we do that, and we managed to bring it down to literally two questions.
Yeah.
So we ask two questions and we
That's
show
great.
you ads, which is a very nice shortcut to everything.
Yeah.
And we had so much complication that we all tried to put under the hood, or we tried to put all of the rules of ad science and our agency experience and how to optimize ads and how to create the best plan and how to target people and how to split between awareness and conversion and top and bottom funnel and all of this stuff. We tried to hide that all under the hood in a way that you don't know about this. We don't say we're an AI platform. We say that we're
Yeah.
a platform that simplifies advertising. And I think this is what technology is meant to do.
Yeah.
ad tech tools usually boast about their technology and all of those features and the jargon, and they
But it
want to
doesn't matter to
customize
the
it
end
for you so
user.
much that you
Yeah.
end up getting scared from it.
Yeah.
One of the key issues that small businesses have with advertising is, or with digital advertising, is confidence. They feel that whatever they do, or whatever their freelancers do, or whatever their limited budget agencies do, is not good enough because they don't understand the stuff very well, because they're never explained to properly. They're always feel that they're afraid of it because there's much bigger and better things that they can be doing that they don't really understand.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I love the idea of how you simplify the back end of the system where it's not that you don't want your end user to know what's happening, but at the end of the day, it's just going to overcomplicate the
True.
situation for them. It's going to put them in that box of, am I making the wrong decision? Am I making the right decision? Do I go left? Do I go right? And you wanted to take that headache out so that they could just move forward, create the ad, get it up, test it, and figure out how it's performing
Exactly.
and
And
what
I,
it's
I don't
doing
want
for
to give
them.
them options. I don't want to tell them here are 50 different ads to choose from. I think a lot of the platforms nowadays are like, okay, we're going to create 1,000 ads for you and you can test all of them. But that's not the best way to go about it. It's not a
Yeah,
spray and pray kind of thing. Plus, small businesses don't have the budget to run 1,000 different copies and see which one works. They should
sure.
do something that understands their business, understands advertising, puts those together in a layout that actually works and launches that, which is what
Yeah.
an ad agency is supposed to do.
No, I totally agree with you. So there was something that you said as you were explaining. COVID really shined the inefficiencies in terms of, what was happening to small businesses. I think it really shined a light on a lot of inefficiencies across the board, but in specific, I think we did see a lot of small businesses suffer. They either closed, they didn't make it past COVID. And I think, just talking from my standpoint, approaching, as you and I are both in the same industry and how I approach marketing from a very strategic lens and bringing them back to the foundations of marketing, to the origination of, like, this is where you need to start, and to not overcomplicate, like you say, and to really bring it from the standpoint of the ad perspective versus the tech side, right? But let's talk more about that, because I think that a lot has shifted for small businesses post COVID, and I want to hear your perspective on that.
Sure. So I think one of the interesting things that has shifted after COVID is that there has been a lot of ad tech tools for small businesses. However, those ad tech tools, from my opinion, or from what I've seen, are all bottom funnel. So let me just explain the funnel just in case any of the
Yep,
listeners are not very
that's
familiar with the
great.
process. So the way advertising works is usually you start by reaching 1 million people. Out of those 1 million people, maybe 100 visit your website. Out of those 100, 20 people click on whatever product. Out of those 20 people, one potentially converts. So
Yeah.
the funnel goes from awareness, which is reaching the biggest number of people, to identifying the people who are interested, who consider the product, who purchase, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the ad tech tools out there that are relevant for small businesses help with the bottom side of the funnel around. So you can do email marketing to the list that you know, or you can help do SEO to help improve your website or things like that. But there are very few tools that allow you to reach a broad group of people, because
Mm-hmm.
reaching broad groups of people usually requires media buys and working with media and working with effectively an agency. So I think what OSSA tries to do specifically is to target top funnel, or the upper part of the funnel, which is helping small businesses reach a wide array of users. The the optimization and the talking to your existing audiences and the CRM part has become, there's been a lot of tools that help with that, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce to a certain degree, or a lot of the tools around that, MailChimp, make it much
Mm-hmm.
easier to target those people. But when you want to do mass reach and get to the most number of people, that's the most difficult part. And I
Yeah.
think small businesses have been conditioned to just do sales ads, like, let me just do stuff around direct selling. But this is not how advertising works. Whenever you see a salesperson who comes in and is being pushy and forcing you to buy something, you usually turn away.
Yeah.
And advertising, as we grew to know it, is composed of two components. You have the awareness, and then you have the sales part, and you need those to work in tandem. You need to have seen something about the business before it tries to sell you something. And I think this is where we try to do a lot of our emphasis or a lot of our differentiation.
Yeah, no, totally.
So, sorry to answer
Yeah,
your question about
yeah,
COVID. I think yes, a lot of stuff have improved, but
yes.
they've improved bottom funnel, but there's still a major gap on the top.
Yeah. What do you think could have happened during COVID? I mean, because a lot of businesses across the world, I mean, and just for the listeners, Fadi is dialing in from the United Arab Emirates in Dubai, and I am in the United States, but a lot of, what the suffrage of small business that we saw in the US, and predominantly as you like would hear a lot of what was happening in New York, restaurants were closing, small mom and pop bakers, and so on and so forth, just because it's more of a hyper concentrated row of like small businesses. But the same thing was happening globally. What do you think could have been done to mitigate the support structure of small businesses during COVID if there was something that was available for them, especially during that, like, I mean, a time that I don't think and hopefully we won't be experiencing again, you know?
Uh, I think I think there was a lot of fake initiatives to help small businesses. Like
Yeah.
I'll I obviously don't want to name companies because I have a lot of business associations with them, but one of the
Yeah.
really, really big publishing networks came to us and said, we're giving away $100 million to small businesses in advertising revenue. Like, okay, this is great. And then and they outsourced all of this to Deloitte to make sure that it's all fair. So I ended
Okay.
up I was a small business at the time. I ended up filling form after form and detail after detail and KYC after KYC.
Yeah.
And they kept on asking more and more questions and requesting a lot more stuff. And then I got a value of $1,000 worth of ad credit, which I thought actually made me lose a lot of money because I probably spent something like $5,000 of my time and my company's time just to compile all of this paperwork.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of help that was just for the sake of helping as opposed to genuine helping.
Hmm.
Uh, what could have helped is, well, I mean, certain places like high street restaurants that don't do delivery or certain shops that don't have online are really need to change their model in some way. So the
Hmm.
businesses definitely need to work on either selling online or delivery or any of that to fix the product part. From the
Hmm.
marketing part, I think there could have been a lot more CSR initiatives, whether agencies allocating a certain number of hours to help small businesses or any government funding going to marketing specifically. Going small, going local. I know that this has always been something that we talk about and we promote as a CSR thing that we want to do. However, from my experience and having worked across the startup ecosystem, I think there's very, very little support that happens in marketing. You have a lot of support in sales, you have a lot of support in finance, you have a lot of support in legal and logistics, in all of that. But there's very, very little when it comes to marketing. And I think this is usually because the ad agencies are not very interested in this ecosystem because
Yeah.
they can't afford to have 100 small clients. It doesn't work for them. And I
But
think
if,
we're at an age where technology is finally up to a standard that it can be smart, it can be creative, it can help with that. And if you include a little bit of suggestions and proper input and prompt engineering or help the small businesses understand what they need to do, then it can significantly work for them.
yeah. No, I like that you say that where there isn't a lot of interest because, coming from marketers and from the back end, we know what it takes to develop, right? I mean, even from the standpoint of, organic SEO or, as you talk about from a social, online social and developing organic posts, like paid posts. I mean, there is a lot of effort and grind that goes into putting these things forward. But it is funny and true but when you think about it, the small business owner is the mass, right? And if you
Sure.
can come up with a technology like you have done with OSSA or with just an idea that can catapult into supporting the small business from the standpoint, you could actually make a lot more money supporting small businesses than
Sure.
by just having 5 or 6 enterprise clients. I mean, think about Target, right? I mean, Target in the United States decided to partner up with, big fashion designers and start to create, cheaper designer wear. And so then that designer was able to get their name in front of the mass, which is
Mhm.
what makes up the United States. So I think that like-minded people like myself and you, which I think is great, that we are finally coming together to want to kind of break through this system and to really give them a voice and the voice that they deserve because I mean, some of these businesses don't make it past a year, year and a half, 2 years at a max, and they put so much into building, their product or their service.
Uh, Of course, and I think the helping part and the CSR part or the democratizing advertising part is great, but also there's a lot of money in it. Like we calculated the market size at around $127 billion of small
Yeah.
businesses not advertising. This is
Yeah.
the biggest trapped value or untapped advertising market
And
out
you
there.
think it's just because they don't know or a fear to kind of jump in, no budget?
But I think they want to do it. They just don't know how to do it and who to do it with because there's
Yeah.
very limited options for them. So we did this analysis. We looked at, I think there's around 350 million startups or small businesses globally.
Yeah.
But according to the latest published numbers, there are 20 million ad accounts on Google and 10 million ad accounts on Facebook, which means that more than 90% of those don't do digital advertising. And I think
Yeah.
if you don't do advertising on Meta or on Google, then you pretty much don't do digital advertising. And those are
Basically.
ideally the best platforms for small businesses to be heard.
Yeah. But funny that you bring up Meta, because I think a lot of the times when we work on the back end, we know that they're always changing their algorithm. So how are you guys at OSSA, like, working to ensure that you're supporting that? Because sometimes it feels like I'm spending all this money and I'm coming at it from a small business mentality, not from a marketer standpoint, but from what I hear sometimes from some of my clients. I'm spending all this money, then all of a sudden something drop shifts and changes and things get more expensive. And, how are you guys addressing that? And what will the conversation and the communication be to people who are actually using your platform? Because some of them may notice a change.
I mean, the nice thing is that we manage massive brand presence on Meta. So we're very, very familiar. We're partners with Meta. So we understand a lot more what they do and how the algorithm works and how they go about their marketing. So that significantly helps the fact that we're very close to them and understand this. The other part though is that the algorithm is usually related to organic posting, less about paid advertising. Paid advertising is you identify people with a specific interest, you pay money in order to reach them, which is a lot more straightforward. Granted, a lot of things change and how the ad shows and all of that would differ and where you need to do the placement would differ. But in general, it's a little bit simpler. So having that helps. And I think one of the key things that small businesses struggle with social media is they believe that if they post something on Facebook, then everyone would see it. When in fact, this is definitely not the case. And
Yeah.
organic reach is in some cases less than 1%. So if you spend your life getting 100 users and you create a post, it's very likely that only one person would see it. And this is
Yeah.
why you need paid advertising. And this is where it becomes very tricky for you to go to campaign manager and set all of this in your back end.
Yeah.
Now, all of the platforms are using Gen AI in order to make it easier to generate content. And now you can do like 200 different ads in a second, and they would create the background for you and change your product, etc. But still, the simplicity part is super, super complicated. Like by the time you learn how to log in and go through all of the process and understand how to make this work, you probably lost the clients and you have significant number of drop-offs from all of those platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you guys looking to, because I know in the US the Small Business Alliance is it's not where it should be. I mean, let's just be honest. And I think from a government level, which is a majority where a lot of small businesses may begin to think to pull out resources, and it's just very 1950s, 1960s. I mean, they're not with the pace of the time. How are you guys? Because I know that you are beta testing right now in England, and I'm sure it's the same setup as it is in the US as well as it is in Dubai with like the whole SDA. Is this something that you guys are also champion to try and get into, and the various type of partnerships that you're looking to do?
So we definitely are. We're in talks with Small Business Britain and the Federation of Small Businesses in Britain. We are about to talk to the SBA in the US. We are
Yeah.
talking to Dubai Chamber here. So we are looking at those entities because we believe that there's a significant opportunity for us to work together. A, by helping those small businesses get a solution in order to advertise, and B, by potentially them subsidizing advertising for small businesses to a certain degree, because so far they subsidize a lot of stuff. Like you can get free consultancy or accounting services or legal services, but advertising is never on the agenda only because there's no solution to do this.
Yeah.
So we are looking at providing this service through a lot of those industry bodies, whether it's for small businesses specifically as the SBA, or whether it's industry bodies for hairdressers, for example, or lawyers, or different verticals who would definitely want to grow their segments.
Yeah, totally. I mean, here's a question. Why do you think that marketing is always on the back burner for small businesses? I mean, because you did touch on this a little bit. Like there's always, and you're touching on it now with like the whole government sector. There is always free resources for finance. There's free resources for X, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's like you've launched your business. You need to push it out to an audience. And yes, you're going to get resources for capital and so on and so forth. But then how are you going to bring people in? How are you, whether it's a brick and mortar, how are you going to drive people to your site? It's not just coming from a marketer, it's a crucial part of your business. And it's interesting because even during COVID, people decided to just do away with marketing.
So we did a lot of research with small businesses, and we were asking them about their marketing budgets, and none of them have a set marketing budget. And their marketing budget competes with, like, do I redo my kitchen or do I advertise my business? Because this is what a small business owner does. Do we go to vacation? Do we go on vacation to Paris this year, or do I put in $5,000 of advertising for my business?
Yeah.
I think marketing has become one of those things that you don't know if it's going to work or not. So it's a bit of a gamble, and you're likely, in many cases, because they've been doing it wrong, because they haven't been working with the right entity, because it's been a bit of a drain for cash, they always try to cut it out first because they're not sure of it and they don't know if they're doing it right.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, obviously, as you say, if you don't market, you don't grow. And those small businesses, by definition, small is something that needs to grow, and this is what they need to do. But because of a lack of options, because if they're not sure of how it works, they end up sacrificing it. And again, same on the grant part or government part or subsidy part, because they can't properly offer it, because they can't go to a large ad agency and tell them, I'll give you, I don't know,
X
$2 million
amount.
dollars to advertise 200 businesses. They're going to say our minimum client is this much, which doesn't work. And
Yeah.
a client is a client for an ad agency at the end of the day. If it's a small business or if it's P&G, it would be
The same
at
amount
some
of work.
level require understanding the brand, getting into it, going through the positioning and all of that. However,
Hmm.
it can be simpler.
Yes, I totally agree. So tell me a little bit about some case studies that you had like during COVID as you were running some social media channels, because I think that there's a lot that can be like taken from enterprise clients. How did some of them, or how did you support some of them to be able to maybe pivot in their messaging? Because there was a lot of pivoting at some point that was happening with a lot of companies, whether they were full force on one service and then all of a sudden COVID happened and that service was no longer being bought. So how do we take, what our brand does and kind of twist it into a different message and an angle? But I'd love to hear if you had any case studies that, really kind of measured the success of, working through a crazy time like COVID.
Uh, it's a very interesting question. I think we we had so many clients that diverged into every possible strategy. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the clients we were working with was the health authority here, so we were helping
Yeah.
about all COVID messaging about how to manage that. I think there was a lot of community feel and care that took place. I think everyone trusted everyone, everyone loved everyone, everyone was looking for advice and help and anything like that. So probably every brand told you to sanitize your hands and social distance and all of that. And then
Yeah.
once you passed that, brands wanted to start entertaining you a little bit while you stay at home. So they were kind of suggesting games or playful stuff to do with their products or things like that. And then it evolved to a stage where, okay, now we really need to sell. We were playing around for very
Yeah.
long. And then they started significantly increasing budgets. And the brands that were, I would say, COVID friendly in the sense that they easily had an e-commerce presence or they could deliver to your house did
Hmm.
so much better during COVID than they did their entire lives, because there was no other option. So I think COVID killed a lot of competition around them
Yeah.
so that they became much better. And the other brands that didn't have that offering quickly pivoted and tried to align themselves with a brand that does, whether it's Amazon to sell their online products, or DoorDash equivalent that would help deliver their food,
Mm-hmm.
or whether they develop their own delivery service to a certain degree. But it was just, how can we get into people's home? How can we do it very easily? How can we do it online? And how can we do it through, whether it's a WhatsApp or a messaging or a simplified platform?
Mm-hmm.
I think what worked really, really well during COVID is a certain level of trust that brands never had before. Because before, you would need to fill in a form, they need to make sure you're right, you need to prepay before anything gets done. With
Mm-hmm.
COVID, you'd send a message, I want this, and it would come to your door, and you're 99.9% likely to pay, because A, you're desperate, B, it's not a time to fool anyone, it's not a time to do anything
Sure.
uh, weird. So I believe it became a lot more true and ideal as a market, which was great.
Yeah. No, I love that trust piece that you bring up, because I think what I've seen in a shift, no matter what you're selling from a product and service, is that people want to get to know you as a brand. People want to understand, is it going to support me and my business? And I think that level of trust further went into wanting to understand, who am I partnering with and who's going to support me, and to really build that relationship and that connection with the brand.
Sure. And I think probably during COVID, to answer your question much more specifically, I think during COVID, a lot of the people behind the brands actually appeared. So you knew which person you were dealing with, and you spoke to a person. It wasn't just a brand and customer service, we'll get back to you. It was like, hi, Sasha, I'm John. I'm going to be delivering your order. I'm going to be helping
Sure.
you. We all started talking to people, learning about the people behind the brands, and the brands that became much more human, whether it's sharing advice or helping entertain people or doing the delivery for them. You just felt that literally the CEO or the marketing manager is there, sleeves rolled, helping answer every comment, doing everything they can to sustain their business and make sure they keep you as a client.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I always tell my clients, no matter what they're doing, you people want to see who's behind the scenes, and like I have a client who's in the music business industry, and they're older, they're two older guys, and they're like, "Oh, but we're just like old men." And I was like, "It doesn't matter." I'm like, "They want to resonate with you, and you guys have a history. And this is the music industry, and so they can learn a lot from somebody who's been around the block." So it's just getting them to educate themselves to kind of understand how that process works and really what connects with the client on the other end.
Sure. And I think this is a bit more of a Gen Z quality, I would say. Before, it was all about like polished advertising and amazing TV ads. And now the briefs or the brand guidelines we're getting from all of the brands is, we want you to do TikToks like a schoolgirl or
Yeah.
someone who has no experience in designing anything. And
Sure.
it is getting rougher and more personal and more human
Hmm.
day by day. I think people are sick of the facade of brands. And like, we see it very, very specifically on TikTok. The more brand you are, the less people will engage with you. Like, the
Yes.
more human, the more quirky, the more
The
uh,
truth, the more
rough around
authentic.
the
Yeah.
edges,
Yeah.
yeah, the more authentic you are. And
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily talking about brand purpose. I feel that brand purpose has been something that, it was a phase that we all passed through, and every brand claimed that they're there to help the environment or do whatever, but we all knew it was really not the case. Like, we know that the
Yeah.
plastic bag company is not helping preserve plastic, or the oil and gas company is not helping preserve oil, no matter how much they position it as their purpose. But we just want to feel that they're doing the best that they can. There's a human talking to me. It's actually real. It's not fake, done through a
Hmm.
teleprompter with six different layers of bureaucracy and approval before you get to it. Like, the more genuine you feel
Yeah.
you are, the better it picks up, and the better this generation, the more relevant it is for those social media platforms. It is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there is a big podcaster out there, and he's also older, and he comes from that, boomer generation. And he talks about, every time I go and I sit down and I'm just about to take an amazing photo shoot, he's like, I want to slap myself, because I know that these photos are not going to get the same interaction as if when I just get on my phone and I say, "Hey guys, I just woke up. This is what I was thinking, and I wanted to tell you guys something." But then he still goes out and he does them, for whatever reason. I think it's just, what's the word? It's kind of, unlearning what we
Yeah.
thought was the right way to do things.
Yeah, I think the unlearning is very, very difficult. Like it is literally advertising changed significantly over the past 3 years, and it changed from the super polished look to be as rough as possible and get as little resources as you can. And
Yeah.
it works great. It's just very, very difficult to get your head around it and unlearn what you've been working on for the past, I don't know, decades.
Totally. And I think one of the takeaways is also recognizing that marketing really shifts with the times and the environment. And I think, once you understand, the world of marketing, and I don't want to say it's complex because it's not, it's just sometimes as business owners, you're a tourist in a country that you don't speak the language, but it doesn't mean you don't go visit it, right? Because you want to see all it has to offer. So, knowing when you know what marketing has to offer, and then as times shift, whether we go through a crazy collective, insane time like we did during COVID, or whether your own personal industry is shifting, marketing is always there to support that shift and to really further grow you in that manner. So, Fadi, what is your ultimate goal for OSSA?
Uh, I mean, I know it sounds very
Lofty?
wishy-washy to a certain degree or fluffy, but I really believe in trying to democratize advertising. I don't think I was speaking to actually the chairman of WPP in the region, and he was telling me that he always said that ad agencies are an elitist entity
Mhm.
because they only work with
I love that he
large
said that.
organizations.
Yeah.
And I really do believe in democratizing advertising or just making it accessible to everyone. I don't believe that you should get lost to create an ad on Facebook or Google, and this should not stop you from promoting your business. And
Yeah.
with the whole gig economy, with after COVID small business growth, with all of this claimed focus on helping small business infrastructure, I think it should be very, very easy to advertise, and we should significantly help in doing that.
I love that. I love that. So where can the users jump on and maybe create their own account for OSA and set up and kind of take a swing at it?
They can go to ossaplatform.com. That's OSSA platform.com, and they see kind of everything that it does. They can give it a try and develop an ad all the way before even registering or paying for anything. So you can see what everything looks like before any commitment.
And it's a super easy platform. Fadi walked me through and gave me a demo. And really, from a one-to-one standpoint, it's not challenging at all for anybody who has zero background in marketing to really understand how to develop it. Any last words, Fadi, for the audience?
Uh,
Don't
Not
freak
really. I
out
just
over
want,
marketing.
yeah, don't freak out. It's not difficult. It's just there's a clear science behind it. It's just people don't want to help you because you don't pay a lot of money for them, and they have other opportunities.
Yeah.
But again, it really try to simplify it as much as possible. Follow the basics. Sasha, I love what you've been doing around whether it's your book or website or podcast about trying to simplify marketing. I think everyone has been trying to complexify it only to kind of claim ownership of it, and
Hmm.
it's their only strength in doing that. So I think what you're doing is great, and we'd love to support in any way possible.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Fadi. And likewise. And you guys can find Fadi on LinkedIn. His last name is spelled Khater. So look him up, connect with him. I'm sure he'll be responding to any questions you have. I appreciate
I
it.
would
This
love
was
to.
so great.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Thank you,
Take care.
Fadi.